The train to Florence. The morning train rattled gently as Elena found her seat by the window. She was traveling alone, a stack of books in her bag and a sketchpad balanced on her lap. Across the aisle, a man with messy hair and kind eyes kept glancing her way, as if trying to gather the courage to speak. When the train lurched, Elena's pencil rolled to the floor. The man picked it up before she could. "Here," he said with a smile, handing it back. "Are you an artist?" "Just trying to be," Elena replied, her voice shy but warm. He introduced himself as Luca, a writer heading to Florence for research. Conversation flowed as naturally as the moving train, books, music, favorite cafes, their secret dreams. Elena found herself laughing more than she had in months, while Luca scribbled a line in his notebook, "The stranger who feels like home." As the train sped past golden fields, silence fell between them, but it was not uncomfortable. Elena sketched Luca without asking, his thoughtful eyes and the way sunlight touched his hair. When she showed him, he stared at the drawing, moved. "No one has ever seen me like this," he whispered. The hours vanished. By the time the announcement for Florence came, both felt the weight of goodbye pressing in. On the platform, surrounded by hurried passengers, Luca hesitated. "Will I see you again?" he asked, almost afraid of her answer. Elena thought of her life, her routines, her solitude, and then of the laughter they had shared on a single train ride. She pulled a small page from her sketchpad, tore it carefully, and handed it to him. "My number," she said softly. Luca smiled, tucking the paper into his notebook like a treasure. As the crowd carried them in different directions, Elena glanced back once. He was standing there, still watching her, as if the world had just shifted. That evening, her phone buzzed. A message appeared. "The stranger who feels like home. I'd like to keep writing our story, if you'll let me." Elena smiled, her heart racing. The train had taken her to Florence, but perhaps it had also carried her to something far more extraordinary, love that began with a rolling pencil and a kind-eyed stranger. A Promise by the Lake. The lake had always been their secret place. Hidden between tall pines and kissed by golden sunsets, it was where Ethan first confessed his feelings to Lily, years ago, when they were still awkward teenagers. Now, 10 years later, Ethan stood by the same water's edge, waiting. He hadn't seen Lily in almost 2 years since she had moved abroad for work. Life had pulled them apart, but neither of them had been able to let go completely. When Lily finally appeared, walking down the worn path with her familiar smile, Ethan's heart leapt. She hadn't changed much, her hair still caught the sunlight, her eyes still carried the warmth of summer afternoons. "You came," he whispered, almost in disbelief. "I promised I would," she replied softly, stepping closer. They sat on the old wooden bench by the lake, silence stretching between them. Not uncomfortable silence, but the kind that carried memories, childhood laughter, teenage dreams, midnight talks about the future. "I thought I lost you," Ethan admitted, his voice breaking slightly. Lily looked at him, her eyes shimmering. "You never lost me. I just needed to find myself first. But every step I took, I carried you with me." The breeze stirred the water, scattering the reflection of the sky. Ethan reached for her hand, hesitant, as if afraid she would vanish like a dream. But she held on firmly, as though anchoring him to reality. "I don't care where life takes us anymore," he said. "All I want is to face it with you." Tears welled up in Lily's eyes, and she leaned into him, her forehead resting against his shoulder. "Then promise me," she whispered, "that no matter the distance, no matter the time, we'll always find our way back here." Ethan smiled, pressing a kiss on her hair. "I promise." The lake glistened beneath the fading sun, bearing silent witness to a love that had weathered years, distance, and silence, only to return stronger, bound by a simple promise. The last train home. The clock at the small town station struck 10:45 p.m., and Emma sat quietly on the wooden bench, clutching a book she wasn't really reading. The night air carried the scent of rain, and the platform lights flickered against the empty tracks. She was waiting for the last train, but more than that, she was waiting for him. Noah had promised he would come. 2 months ago, under the maple tree by the river, he had whispered, "Wait for me. When I return, we'll start again." Those words had carried her through sleepless nights and endless days. As the train's whistle echoed in the distance, Emma's heart pounded. Passengers began to gather, strangers with tired eyes and heavy bags. The train pulled in, its metal screech breaking the silence, and people spilled onto the platform. Emma searched every face, her chest tightening when she didn't see him. Minutes passed. The crowd thinned. Her hope wavered. She turned to leave, her steps slow and heavy. Until she heard a familiar voice. "Emma." She spun around. There he was, Noah, standing at the far end of the platform, breathless as if he had run the whole way. His hair was damp from the drizzle, his shirt wrinkled, but his eyes, they were exactly as she remembered, warm, steady, and full of everything she had missed. Tears blurred her vision as she ran to him. He caught her in his arms, lifting her off the ground. The world around them, the noise of the train, the chatter of passengers, faded into nothing. "I thought you wouldn't come," she whispered against his shoulder. "I almost didn't make it," he admitted, pulling back just enough to look into her eyes. "But I couldn't let you leave without me. I told you, I'd always come back." Her smile trembled as she touched his cheek. "And I told you, I'd always wait." The last train whistled again, ready to depart. Together, hand in hand, they stepped aboard, not just toward the city, but toward the future they had both been longing for. And as the train pulled away, Emma rested her head on Noah's shoulder, knowing that this time, he was truly home. The Promise by the River. The first time Emma met Daniel was by the riverbank in their small town. She had dropped her sketchbook, and the pages fluttered dangerously close to the water. Daniel caught it just in time, handing it back with a crooked smile. From that day on, they kept meeting by the river, sometimes by accident, sometimes on purpose. Emma would draw while Daniel skipped stones, and slowly, their conversations grew deeper than the current flowing beside them. Daniel was a dreamer, always talking about leaving town to see the world. Emma, on the other hand, was rooted like the willow trees she often drew. She feared goodbyes more than anything else. One evening, under the fading glow of sunset, Daniel said, "I'll be leaving soon." Emma's heart sank. She tried to smile but failed. "How long?" "I don't know," he admitted. Then he took her hand, his thumb brushing gently over her knuckles. "But no matter where I go, this river will remind me of you. One day, I'll come back. Promise me you'll be here." Her eyes glistened. "I promise." Years passed. Letters arrived, sometimes late, sometimes never. Daniel sent stories of mountains, cities, and oceans, always ending with, "I'll come back to the river." Emma waited. Through seasons of rain and blossoms, she returned to the same spot, sketching the willow trees and listening to the water's endless song. Then, on a quiet spring morning, as she sat with her sketchbook, a shadow fell across the page. She looked up, and there he was, older, sun-tanned, his smile the same as the day they met. "Emma," he said softly. Her hand trembled as she closed her sketchbook. "You came back." "I promised," he whispered, kneeling beside her. "And I intend to keep every promise to you." The river flowed quietly beside them, carrying away the years they had lost, leaving only the two of them, together at last.